Hello, this is Dr. Salvatore Vinciguerra, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to identify sharp key signatures. Please enjoy this video. So first we're going to be talking about, what is a key signature? And I'm going to review the different parts of the musical staff for you so you can really identify this if you come across it while reading a piece of music. And depending upon what instrument you play, you will either have a clef sign here, and this is a treble clef or the G clef, and down here this is the bass clef or the F clef. Now, different instruments like flutes and clarinets and trumpets also play off of the treble clef, and down here we have maybe tubas, cellos, trombones would play off of the bass clef. So it's used for a wide variety of instruments, but also voices. Sopranos and altos would be up here, and tenors and basses in chorus class would learn how to read bass clef. And yes, there's a separate alto clef, there's a separate tenor clef, which are rarely used. The alto clef is used by the viola in the orchestra class, and the tenor clef is used by the cello and sometimes by actual tenors in chorus class. So really look at one of my videos. I have several of them on clef signs and also these numbers here, which are the time signatures. So look out for my playlist on basic music theory and learning how to read and write music to understand what these are. But in between the clef sign and the time signature is the key signature. So in between the clef sign and the time signature, you would either see a sharp sign or a series of sharp signs or a series of flat signs. If you saw them separately in a piece of music, they're called accidentals. And I have a whole video on accidentals and the rules of the accidentals. Now, there is a key signature that doesn't have any flats or sharps. It would just look like the previous example, and it would be blank. There's nothing there, and that would be the key of C. Another thing that you should know about key signatures is that the sharps and flats do follow a certain order on the musical staff. And here's the order of our sharps. You will always see them on the musical staff in this order: F, C, G, D, A, E, and B. Or I use the mnemonic device in order to memorize it, and I say, fat cats get drowsy after eating birds. The flats will always be in this order, and they will be B, E, A, D, G, C, F, or bead. Greatest common factor is how I would memorize that. If you look at the orders of the flats and sharps very carefully, you will notice that they are related to one another, and they're actually the reverse lettering or order of one another, and that's how they're related. And I'll have a whole video on the circle of fifths and how they're related, and it's quite unique even to analyze pieces of music to find different key areas. Now, I do want to also say something. The musical alphabet will also be used, and if you need to know how to identify the different names of the notes in either treble clef or bass clef, go back and look at my playlist for a video on how to identify notes in treble clef or bass clef. The names of the notes or the names of the letters that we use for the musical alphabet, just as a refresher, because we will be using that, and that's separate from this, and a lot of people get that confused with the musical alphabet. The musical alphabet is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it cycles over again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so we have a whole series of notes that are in sequence up and down, from low to high, using the musical alphabet. So keep that in mind as you're watching this video. In this example, you notice that there is one sharp in between the clef sign and the time signature, and this would be a piece of piano music because it has a grand staff here. A key signature are the notes of what's supposed to be played either sharp or flat within an entire piece of music. And it can be canceled by either a natural sign or a change of key. And I'll share with you some examples at the end of this video, as I have an example from one of my trumpet pieces that I play. And as you can see here, this is F sharp. The sharps are very exact where they are placed. This is the F line. Remember, every good boy does fine when we're reading them. So just like you would put a note here, this is where the sharp would be placed for this particular key signature. Now, how do we identify the name of this key signature? And a lot of students would just say, oh, it's a sharp key signature. And no, you would not say that. It's more than just a sharp key signature. They actually have names. So in order to find the name of this particular key signature, or any sharp key signature, you take the name of this sharp, or this location of this note, which is F sharp, and you go up a half step and you have the name of your key signature. And so F sharp going up a half step from F sharp would be G. So this one key signature right here with one sharp, even though it's F sharp, is called the key of G. So when you're trying to identify a sharp key signature, all you have to do is take that name of this particular sharp and you go up a half step from this note, and then you're going to be able to get the answer. And in this case, it is G. Let's do another example. Okay, so this is what you would see if you were to have a key signature change in a piece of music. You would see two bar lines like this to separate the music and tell you, hello, there's going to be another key signature here and you need to pay attention. And you'll see this in a piece of music where you're going to have a key change. Now, this particular key, as you can see here, has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp, just like our chart. Fat cats get drowsy after eating birds. Well, it's going to follow that order. The first sharp is F and the second sharp is C. Are they placed in a particular area on the staff? Yes, and they usually would find the F in the top line here, and you would also find that C on the third space in treble clef, and the same goes down here. They do follow a particular order just for visual appeal, and it's important that as a musician, if you're writing the key signature out for somebody, if you're composing a piece of music, then you write it in these particular spots, because there are many different C's that you could put these in, but for key signatures you have to be specific and put them where they're supposed to go, and these are the proper places where you would put them there. Now, what is the name of this key signature, you would say? The first one is G, because you took the F sharp and you raised it a half step, and you noted that this is the key of G because of that, because you're following the directions of how to find it. Well, the same thing happens here for this particular key signature. You take the sharp farthest to the right, which is C sharp, and you go up a half step and you identify that key signature and you name it. So if this is C sharp, you go up a half step from C sharp, and A, B, C, D is the next note, or it is the next half step, then this is the key of D. So our next example uses all of the sharps that you may encounter in a key signature, and it follows the special order. Fat cats get drowsy after eating birds, both for treble clef and bass clef, and you also follow the same procedure that you were to identify the key signature. This is B sharp, and you go up a half step from B sharp. In this case, it's not just C. We've already identified that key signature of C. It has no flats and no sharps. And in this case, we follow a special rule that whenever the name of that key signature is sharp in the key signature, we also say that it is sharp in naming the key signature. So if we go up a half step from B sharp, then this is C sharp, because the sharp is actually in the key signature. So one of the biggest problems I have with students when identifying key signatures is that they struggle to go up to the next half step. And I really don't understand that because we're using the musical alphabet. We're using A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then remember it cycles over again to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if you're struggling with this, go back to one of my previous videos where I talk about naming the musical notes and even talking about the piano and identifying the names on the piano, because that would help you a lot to understand what we're doing here. So when I'm saying go up to the next, the half step after that, remember that a lot of our musical scales are based on half steps and whole steps, and just knowing that you're going up to the next letter name in the musical alphabet when I say go up to the next half step would really help out a lot of people to understand how to identify these key signatures. So let's look at this piece of music that I played in middle school, and it's Somewhere Out There by James Horner and arranged by Steve Smith. And you notice that we have our clef sign. We also have our time signature right here. This is common time signature. It's also equal to 4/4 time, and I have another video on time signatures that you can check out. But in between the clef sign and the time signature right here is the key signature, which is our sharp or flat. Or sometimes there's nothing there. Remember that. That's the key of C if there's nothing right there. So now let's identify our key signature. We have one sharp, so I were to go Every Good Boy Does Fine to figure out the name of that sharp and where it's placed on the musical staff. So it's F sharp, and all the F's in the entire piece of music would be sharp unless it's canceled by a natural sign or an actual key signature change, and I do have that in this particular piece of music. But first, let's identify, we just identified what sharp's going to be in this key signature, but we haven't named it. So in order to name it, remember we take the sharp furthest to the right and we go up a half step and we have our name of our key signature. So in this case we have F sharp, we go up a half step, and A, B, C, D, E, F, and this is the key of G. Now let's look throughout the piece. If I were to have an F in this part of the piece of music, I have to play it sharp because it's in the key signature. And it also has that special thing that I was talking about down here. This is a natural sign, and this cancels the effect of the key signature over here. So if I were to encounter a natural sign placed right before an F, then I have to play this. I have to follow the rules, F natural, and follow the rules of an accidental. Now, if there was an F over here for the rest of the piece of music, I have to know I have to switch back to that F sharp. The F sharp stays in effect for the entire piece of music unless it's canceled by an accidental. And you see another accidental right there, and that's a flat. That's a B flat. But if I go further down the piece of music, of course, it's trying to go to a different key or tonal center here, and it changes its key signature. See the double bars that I used in my example? It puts the natural sign there. That's not always there when you have a key signature change, and then it puts the new key signature, and it stays in effect this time for the entire or the rest of the piece of music all the way down to the double bar line at the end. So there's the case where it not only is changing it, or it's trying to modulate here at the end of the piece of music with this natural sign, it's trying to go to this different tonal center and or key signature. So this is a good example to share with you that sharp in effect, or the key signature in effect for different parts of a piece of music. This is Dr. Salvatore Vinciguerra. Thank you for watching this video on how to identify sharp key signatures. If you missed out on my first video on this topic of how to identify key signatures, where I'm talking about flat key signatures, then please look in the description box below. And if you want to learn more about how to read and write music, please check out my main channel page where I have a whole playlist of videos on how to read and write music and basic music theory. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to this channel, and have an amazing day. Thank you.